When you think of the families that shaped the modern world, you probably think of kings and conquerors. But what if I told you the dynasty that truly reshaped our world did it without a single army? This is the real story of the Rothschilds, an empire built not on land, but on finance. And not right there, that's the key. Their strategy was revolutionary. And, the real story of how they rose to power is so much more fascinating than any of the wild myths that have surrounded them for centuries. So let's dive in and separate the facts from the fiction. Our story kicks off back in the 18th century, in the Jewish ghetto of Frankfurt. And you have to understand, this wasn't just a neighborhood, it was basically an open-air prison. Jewish people were literally locked inside at night and on holidays and forced to wear yellow marks to identify themselves. It's from this place of unbelievable restriction that one of history's greatest financial minds would emerge. So how do you break out of a place like that? Well, for Mayor Amschel, the golden key was this title, court factor. It meant he was the trusted financial agent for one of the richest, most powerful men in all of Europe. Despite his origins, his sheer skill with things like rare coins and managing investments earned him a seat at the table. And to really get a sense of his genius, you got to look at the numbers. In 1795, Mayor Amschel's personal wealth was about 4,000 gulden. A solid amount, respectable, but nothing that would change the world. But then, just one single year later, his fortune had absolutely exploded to 60,000 gulden. Now, this wasn't just a lucky break. This was a demonstration of pure mastery. It proved he could multiply wealth at a jaw-dropping rate. And that skill was about to face the test of a lifetime. So picture this. Napoleon is tearing across Europe, and Prince William has to flee for his life. He can't take his massive fortune with him. So what does he do? He hands the whole lot, we're talking over $150 million in today's money, to Mayor Amschel. There were no contracts, no lawyers, no guarantees, just a handshake. So what on earth do you do when a prince hands you his fortune in the middle of a continent-wide war? Well, Mayor Amschel's plan wasn't just to hide the money. No, his solution was brilliant. He built an entire network around it. He looked at Europe like a giant chessboard and placed his 5 sons like masterpieces in the most important financial hubs of the day: Frankfurt, Vienna, Naples, Paris, and, crucially, London. Now think about how radical this was. In an age of horse-drawn carriages and slow, unreliable state mail, he created a private, family-run international bank. It was the first of its kind, able to move money and information across borders faster than anyone else. And that London branch, run by his son Nathan, was the real game changer. Nathan took the prince's money and made a brilliant move. He invested it in the British government. So, when Prince William finally came back from exile, he got the shock of his life. His fortune hadn't just been kept safe, it had actually grown. By pulling this off, by not only protecting but growing a fortune under the most impossible circumstances, they earned the single most valuable asset in the world of finance, a reputation for absolute, unshakable trustworthiness. And with that rock-solid reputation, the family was now in the perfect position to take on their most audacious project yet: bankrolling the Allied armies in the fight to bring down Napoleon himself. You see, governments were incredibly slow and inefficient at moving money around. So Nathan Rothschild just built his own private supply chain. We're talking carrier pigeons, a secret network of trusted agents, the whole shebang. He was literally moving gold to fund the Duke of Wellington's armies on the battlefield faster than the British government could do it themselves. But here's the secret sauce. It wasn't just about moving gold. Because his brothers were stationed in every major European capital, Nathan had a direct line to what was happening on the ground. He knew about major political and military events before kings and prime ministers did. And in finance, that kind of information is priceless. And the results? Well, they speak for themselves. Their vital role in the war, plus that incredible information advantage, made their family wealth just skyrocket. Take a look at this chart. Their capital went from £500,000 in 1815 to over 4.3 million just 3 years later. That is an 800% increase. Just incredible. Of course, that kind of success, it breeds jealousy. It breeds stories. And it gave birth to the single most persistent myth about the family, a story that's been told for 200 years. So now we need to talk about the Battle of Waterloo and separate the historical facts from the propaganda.
Okay, so here's the legend you've probably heard. Nathan was right there at the battle, used a secret courier to get the news of the victory back to London first, then manipulated the stock market and made an absolute killing. But the reality, according to the family's own detailed archives, is, well, completely different. He was not at Waterloo, he had no special messenger, and the profits he made came from a pre-arranged business deal with the government. It was just business as usual.
So if it's not true, where on earth did this story come from? Well, it was completely fabricated in 1846 in a nasty anti-Semitic pamphlet. But the lie was so juicy, so compelling, that it started to spread. Eventually, it was repeated by credible sources, like the Encyclopedia Britannica, and from there, it was picked up and weaponized by Nazi propagandists. A single lie, laundered over time, became a powerful engine for hatred.
But you know what's funny? The actual truth of their power is even more remarkable than the myth. So let's put the propaganda aside and talk about a true story. The time the Rothschilds didn't just make money, but actually saved the British financial system itself.
Let me ask you a question. What happens when a nation's central bank, the very heart of its economy, is about to run out of gold? What happens when the system itself is on the verge of breaking?
Well, that's exactly what was happening in Great Britain in 1825. A financial panic led to a full-blown run on the Bank of England, the most powerful financial institution in the world. The entire British economy was literally minutes away from complete and total collapse.
In this moment of absolute crisis, the government didn't turn to another politician or another committee. They turned to one man. Nathan Rothschild personally stepped in and supplied the Bank of England with enough of his own gold to stop the panic and stabilize the entire system. He wasn't just a powerful banker anymore. He had become a pillar of the empire.
The story of the Rothschilds is an amazing testament to how vision and ambition can build a global empire from literally nothing. But it's also a powerful and kind of chilling reminder of how easily a true story can be twisted into a weapon, and why telling the difference between history and myth is more critical today than ever before.